What's up, Trader's Edge? It's Mark Sebastian, your only option. Boy, Monday was a day for markets. I'm going to go through everything that happened and what to expect for this week. I'm going to cover earnings. We're going to talk about the VIX. And of course, I'm going to give you that one stock to watch. So with that, let's dig in. Everybody. So, quite the day for the S&P 500, up 1.25%. The Qs were up almost 2%. Dow up 0.7%. Good day for the Russell 2000. We're now at like way beyond a new all-time high here in the S&P 500. Qs pretty similar situation. If you look at the diamonds, they look good, not as good. It looks a little more smooth. And then even the Russell 2000 closed at a new high and is gunning for, I think, a little bit of a breakout here. What was the driver? Obviously, we had some positive developments out of China. And the potential for a trade deal there really gave things a boost. You can see XFI, which is the Chinese ETF, not XFIN, XFI, thank you. There we go. You know, it had itself a nice little day, still not near all-time highs. Those are up at 42. I'm going to circle back to this one in a second, but that is a little eye-opening. Now, looking at the bond market, we had this really nice run up, and then we flattened out ahead of the meeting on the 29th. Bond option volatility is at a one-year low, so bond options are really cheap. IEF, pretty similar story. These are the cheapest we've seen bond prices for options in quite some time. I continue to think that you're going to see IEF get over 100 and TLT, which is, really made some news highs, probably heading to 95. Oil, the Russian sanctions have been meaningful and palpable to oil. With the economy heating up, need for energy, there's some upside here. And then kind of circling up markets, the shiny stuff, the shine is off. It's off a little bit below the 21-day. Let's see if it can close the gap, kind of close the gap from the 8th. I'll be interested to see how much further their downside there is. Silver, looks pretty similar, maybe a little bit worse. And platinum, kind of the same story. Bitcoin seems to have found its spot. It was looking real ugly there for a second. It's made some recovery. So Bitcoin rallying, gold off. What does that mean? Risk on, which means traders are willing to buy stocks aggressively along with Bitcoin. And that's going to lead some weakness in bonds and gold, and some safer assets also going to be a problem for the VIX. All right, which we'll close up on. The VIX closed 1579. That is its lowest close since 9/26. I expect it to probably continue, at least through Wednesday. Might get a little bit of a bid ahead of the Fed, but probably not. Now let's talk about the Fed. And I've been saying this, and I was pounding the door on this. You guys heard me talk about this over the weekend. Options in the near term are too cheap. And let me show you what I mean. I published this, I put this out on Friday, the 679 straddles. So if you bought the 679 calls and the 67.95 calls and puts, you were paying $97. The calls are $105.50. The puts are $15, over $15. Folks, you'd have made $23 without having a directional opinion at the end of the day on Friday, and things are still cheap. Looking ahead, I can buy the next 4 days for $81. We moved $83 on Monday. Now is not the time to be selling options on the S&P 500 or the triple Q. Now is the time to be buying, especially short dated. Long term, they're still overpriced. Near term, they are way, way too cheap. And they continue to be that. We have a lot of news coming this week. On Wednesday, we have the Federal Reserve, then we have Google, Meta, and Microsoft earnings. Thursday, we have Apple and Amazon. There's a meeting between Xi and Trump. There is the potential government shutdown ending. There is a lot of news. We have ExxonMobil and Chevron reporting later this week. There's just tons. And yet they're willing to give me these options for nothing. Nothing. All right, so what is my stock to watch this week? Keep an eye on Taiwan Semiconductor. It did have a nice day on Friday. Between, the Taiwan Semiconductor and NVIDIA relationship, there's a lot of companies coming for them now. Intel, AMD, Qualcomm now. Qualcomm exploded higher. But Intel with the foundry business and some of the partnership deals they're making, I'm not saying I want to short this thing, but, it makes me wonder whether the top is in. It's had such a nice run over the last 6 months. It's up almost 100%. I know how good Intel has been, but you got to look at the long term on Intel to realize, hey, you know what? There's still plenty for Intel to move. Taiwan Semiconductor is a completely different stock chart story. So I'm wondering whether a swap out of TSM and NVIDIA and into a chip basket that doesn't include those two makes some sense. So we're talking Micron, Qualcomm, Intel, AMD, Lam Research, ARM, all the other chip makers that are involved in these processes maybe look a little bit more interesting than those two by themselves. So my stock to watch, TSM and NVIDIA, is it time? Are we going to see some rotation out? And does it rotate into some of those other names? All right, folks. We had a great open house in Delta Strike last week. We are extending the buy one, get one offer through Wednesday. You can buy 1 year of Delta Strike for the price of 2 at a reduced rate. It is a great value. You meet with me and trade with me every single day. You can click the link here to sign up. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, leave a question or a comment, and I will answer. All right, everybody. I'm Mark Sebastian. I am your only option. I hope you have a great trading week.